Hi, I'm Red, and this is my 11.1 Holy Priest Mythic Plus guide. There are timestamps so you can follow along as you'd like. The stat priority for regular keys is the same as raid, I would say. So, haste, crit, mastery, verse. You don't even need that much haste, but for keys you should try to at least have 20% so that you can actually react in time to heal people, and if you get above 35%, you might run into mana issues. For high keys, I would put verse right below haste after you have a comfortable level. So verse might end up being your highest secondary stat. And then crit and mastery are relatively equal, but crit is a little better because it procs inspiration, and that's a 5% physical DR. So with the Not Even Close website, I went in and I looked at level 13 keys with my current stamina and avoidance level with just the enchants, and you really don't need versatility at all on 13 or below. So if you're just pushing for 3k, don't worry about versatility that much. Just use whatever gear you have, and I'm sure you'll do fine and get 3k rating. If you're looking for a best in slot list, I'd go with maxroll.gg for like a little bit higher level keys, and I'd go with Wowhead for lower level keys. So there are three trinkets I really wanted to highlight. First is the Burin of the Candle King. It applies a large absorb and it absorbs 50% of each hit. So it's really nice because it can be used for multiple hits. It's not just going to get all absorbed on the first one, it'll absorb like 2 hits, right? I personally consider this to be BIS on level 12 plus keys because you need a tank external for level 12 plus because your tank just won't be able to live all the time unless you have like the ability to help him out like other healers do. The second trinket I'd like to highlight is the Signet of the Priory. It's just a stat stick, not really much to talk about. Same goes with the third trinket, which is the carved Blazicon wax, and that's also from Dark Flame. One trinket that I think is really cool, it's a DPS trinket, and on weekly 10s, I think this is probably best in slot. So let's go and take a look at it. It has a special macro. So if you're an Oracle and you're about to use Premonition of Piety, what I do is I cast Light Spawn, and then I cast Premonition of Piety. I'll GS myself and I'll heal. And you see the Light Spawn's health on the frame right there, and the Light Spawn, it does damage periodically, and it sacrifices its own health to do that damage. So as long as you keep it healed, it's going to be doing damage. I usually see like it on a single cast, it'll do 12 to 18 million damage, and that's pretty substantial. There are two trinkets from Raid that are just best in slot mathematically. So if you're looking for pure HPS, try to get the two Raid trinkets, which would be Mr. Pick Me Up, and that's like a chain heal trinket that just randomly chain heals when you cast your healing spells. And the Eye of Kazan is just a stat stick. So in terms of best in slot trinkets, like Questionably Epic Live is a really good resource. It sims the trinkets and sees like how much theoretically they should be doing. So that's why Pick Me Up and Eye of Kazan are at the top of the list. And then Signet of the Priory and the Blazicon Wax are here. And then Burn of the Candle King is actually not bad, like mathematically. And so if it's not bad mathematically, but it helps like reduce one of our weaknesses, I think it's a really good pickup. Let's talk about our 2-set and 4-set bonus. So our 2-set bonus is just anytime you heal someone, it's going to imply insurance, and it's pretty cool. So when they drop below 40% health, they get a big heal. And the 4-set is when you are in Apotheosis, your Serenity and Sanctify holy words will apply insurance. And all of your healing is increased by 1% for each insurance you have. So in a 5-man group, you could have up to 5% increased healing. So for the start of the season, I've just been using two different talent builds on the priest side of the tree, and one of them is for Theater of Pain, and the reason is you need Disease Dispel in Theater of Pain, and that's really the only dungeon you need Disease Dispel. So I can drop these 2 points and put them elsewhere. My main build is what I've been using for basically every single dungeon, with the one exception being Rookery. You can drop your you can drop Halo, or you can drop Divine Aegis and pick up extra range. And for Rookery on the last boss, that's pretty critical. Oh, one other thing. On Cinderbrew, you can pick up Mind Control and Mind Control one of the bees. I'll do a little video on that later so you can check the channel. This screen just shows what talents I think you should flex into and what are actually flexible. So you can definitely flex out of the defensives at the bottom here to pick up Rookery, and you can flex out of some damage to pick up Disease Dispel. Now let's move on to the Holy Priest side of the tree. So this graphic just shows the flex points, and I'll go into the game and show you what I think about it. So the flex points at the bottom of the tree is Light of the Naru and Lightwell, or you could pick up Prismatic Echoes if you happen to have a lot of mastery. This can be flexible. You can flex Divinity or Eternal Sanctity, and I'm starting to think Eternal Sanctity is a little better. It just increases your apotheosis duration, and that's pretty good. Um, Flex points at the bottom of the tree. If you're in a melee heavy group, I would pick up Censure, or a ranged heavy group rather. I'd pick up Censure, and that allows you to stun a target, and so you don't have to rely just on kicks. You can stun someone if they're about to cast a spell, and that's pretty good. It's almost as good as an interrupt. If you're running out of mana, you should pick up Enlightenment, but I would try my best. I'll explain mana management later, but I would try my best to not use that talent and buff your baseline kit. The flex points at the middle of the tree would be Gales of Son and 2-minute Divine Hymn. So you can drop those all together, and if you want to pick up Enlightenment or you want to pick up Holy Mending, some of the guides recommend you drop Everlasting Light and pick up Enlightenment and still keep the Divine Hymn. So it's kind of just pick and choose, but those are generally what talents I'd go with. Okay, so there are a couple of talents that I should go over that are kind of key to the success of the build. And first that I neglected to put in the PowerPoint is binding heals. So every time you heal and flash heal, you're going to be doing 20% of that healing back on yourself. And the second one is called Trail of Light, and that means 25% of all the healing you do with heal and flash heal will be replicated back onto the previous target. So what this mounts up to is you're going to be healing 3 targets at once when you're casting heal and flash heal. Resonant Words has a huge impact on your gameplay. Casting a Holy Word spell increases the healing of your next flash heal or heal for the next 30 seconds. So what this really means is you want to rotate between casting Holy Word, heal, flash heal, Holy Word, and then you want to try to always follow up with a heal after a Holy Word because it's just such a big buff to that spell. Another interaction that's pretty key that I should mention is your healing on allies with Renew is increased by 6%, so that's another reason to try to keep Renew up on the tank. Prayer of Mending talents. Every time you cast Prayer of Mending and it bounces, it has a 12% chance to apply Renew, which we just talked about Renewed Faith, that increases your healing on that target. And the other talents are just to buff how much Prayer of Mending does. And then the last thing I should really mention that's kind of a key talent point is Divinity increases your healing with Apotheosis by 10%, and it makes your next 3 heals instant cast and do 25% more. So this makes Apotheosis into really the ultimate movement cooldown. If you feel like you don't need as much movement and you just want longer duration Apotheosis, you should opt for Eternal Sanctity. So those are the talents that kind of have an impact on how you should be playing and what you should be doing. Now we're going to talk about the core abilities. So Holy Priest is a special healer. You can actually heal people when they're at full health and still get value out of the cast. So 4 seconds before big incoming damage, you want to just be healing people while at full health. And so cast a heal, flash heal, and heal, flash heal, then the big damage goes off, and you'll already have that mastery built up. So that's kind of how you should play around mastery. Otherwise, you don't really need to think about it that much. You have 2 main abilities that are almost like a cooldown. They are extremely powerful, and you should treat them like a cooldown. So you have Holy Word Serenity, which is just a massive single target heal, and then you have Holy Word Sanctify, and that's just a big AoE heal. And every time you cast a Holy Word, you're going to be proccing Divine Image, and that's on the bottom of the talent tree right here. Divine Image is basically your pet, and it looks like this. It's just this big pet guy, and when you cast like Divine Hymn, every single time your Divine Hymn ticks, your pet is going to be healing extra on everyone with the dazzling lights. Every time you cast Flash Heal, it's going to be doing a single target heal. So I'll get a pet out, it's going to do a single target heal. And with Renew, it does a little heal over time effect, and so yeah, it just kind of does an extra spell that kind of mimics your regular spell. So you don't really need to think about this too much, but the number one thing I'd think about is before Divine Hymn, try to cast at least one Holy Word, like so Holy Word Chastise, and then Holy Word Serenity, then go into Divine Hymn and heal that way. Your core healing abilities are Renew, Prayer of Mending, Flash Heal, and Power Word Shield. Now, most of the time you won't use Power Word Shield, but I should mention that if there's nothing else to heal and say incoming damage is 5 seconds away, you cast a Power Word Shield, then you'd go in to start casting Heal and Flash Heal to get that mastery kicking in, and that's kind of just like the core gameplay loop of Holy Priest. Holy Priest's core damage abilities, the pet also casts damage spells when you cast damage spells. So every time you cast a Holy Word, your pet's going to be summoned, and then you're going to have extra damage. So when you're just doing regular damage, you can consider like, okay, can I use an extra Holy Word on the tank right now and uh, get it on cooldown and then get my pet going? Like that's kind of one thing you should be thinking about. Your other core damage abilities would be Divine Star and Halo. 99% of the time you'll be taking Halo, but if you're a player who likes to do damage on the move, then Divine Star is pretty nice. So your priority list for doing damage, on 5 targets you want to cast Chastise first, then do double Holy Fire, then go into a Rhapsody, Halo or Divine Star, and then you can spam Holy Nova. On single target, it's basically the same, but you want to also keep Shadow Word Pain on the target. So for single target, I just go Chastity, and then I'd get my Holy Words on, or Holy Fire on cooldown. Then I go to Shadow Word Pain, and then I just spam Smite, right? So for AoE, I'd go into the pack, cast a Holy Word, cast Chastise, then go Holy Fire, Holy Fire. Then I'd get my Halo on cooldown, then I just go back into spamming, you know, Holy Nova until Chastise is back, go into a couple Holy Fires, and it's a really simple, basic damage rotation, like most healers. With Archon, it's slightly different. You want to just keep your Halo on cooldown. You don't need to save. Like, Halo is your most powerful spell, so you should be like casting that one first. Otherwise, single target is the same. So now we'll go over your healing cooldowns and the kind of priority list that I use. So as Archon, I try to use Halo first because it does damage and it's a very short cooldown at 1 minute. So you should be using it almost on cooldown unless you need like 10 more seconds before the next AoE happens. You can use it before the next AoE and then go from there. Apotheosis should be second, and that's because it resets your Holy Words cooldowns. And with Apotheosis, you should never cast it while you have 4 stacks of Holy Words. If you have 4 stacks of Holy Words, you should cast a Holy Word and a Holy Word before, and then go Apotheosis, and then you can start blasting. Divine Hymn has like 2 ways that you should be using it. One is to pre-cast it before big damage happens. So like 6 seconds before big damage happens, you might cast Divine Hymn, and then use your rotational spells during the thing. The second way is if you're using Divine Hymn for recovery. So during a recovery phase, say your group is all at like 10% health, so you'd cast a Holy Word, a Holy Word, a Holy Word, and then go into Divine Hymn. And when you do that, your pet is going to be at like it's at 3 stacks right now, and it's doing healing every single time the Divine Hymn ticks. The last 2 priorities would be if you're using the shield trinket, use your shield trinket. And the way to think about it is you want to use a shield trinket on one person, and then you only have to heal 3 people in the group at a time. Because we're a single target healer, it's hard to heal all 4 group members at the same time, let alone 5 if the tank needs help. So you want to use the shield trinket to reduce that number by 1, and then you can actually get through the damage. And if all of those are on cooldown, use Guardian Spirit in the same exact way I just talked about with your shield trinket, so that you're only healing 3 people at a time and you don't have to worry about the 4th person. So healing cooldowns as Oracle is a little different because you don't have Halo. So I would put Apotheosis at the top of the list because it resets your cooldowns and it gives you a mana management. So it's a very powerful spell and it's reducing the mana cost. So you shouldn't run into mana issues unless you're like sitting on Apotheosis the entire dungeon. The second healing cooldown you should worry about is the Piety or Premonition. And that's just used to fill in the gaps between Apotheosis. So you'd want to use your Premonition of Piety and your Premonition of Shield and heal yourself to give yourself the shield and then blast healing because all of your healing is going to go into overhealing. So as Oracle, Piety gives 98% of your healing to replicate on your friendlies. Third is Divine Hymn, we already talked about in Archon. And then the fourth is Shield Trinket. Use it the similar way as Archon, but let's say that you only have Premonition of Piety up, but you don't have the Shield Trinket. So you'd cast Premonition of Piety on yourself. So you'd cast Premonition of Piety on yourself, and then you'd use the Shield Trinket on yourself so that you can stay closer to max health and you're actually able to heal the group. Because if you don't have a shield on yourself and use Premonition of Piety, all your healing is going to be going towards keeping yourself up to 100%, and it's not going to be that much overhealing. And Premonition of Piety is all about the overhealing. And then the last is Guardian Spirit. You use it the same way as Archon, but you might pair it with Premonition of Piety because all of your overhealing is going to be replicated on your party. So in very, very large damage situations, or if you're using it as a recovery cooldown, also use Premonition of Piety plus Guardian Spirit. So the way to cycle your Oracle cooldowns would be Piety plus Shield, then Clairvoyance, and then Insight. And you want to use Insight on cooldown to make sure that you're going to have Piety plus the Shield next. Because if you wait so long that Insight comes off cooldown and you have 2 stacks of your Premonition, then you're not going to have Piety plus Shield, and you're going to have to allocate either your Shield Trinket or your Guardian Spirit to make sure that you can keep people alive. So let's just go into a quick Premonition instruction. So I I'm just healing the group, and then all of a sudden the group drops to 10% and I wasn't ready. Then I'm going to cast Premonition, Guardian Spirit, heal myself. I might put down my shield, my trinket we talked about earlier. And so that's doing damage while I'm healing myself. And I'm doing double healing with Guardian Spirit. And that should be enough to recover from almost anything. If you really, really, really need to recover and you use Premonition and Piety, then I'd use my health potion, pop myself all the way back up, and then I'm immediately doing group healing. So rotationally, both Oracle and Archon are very similar. There's like one key difference that I'll go over in a second. But above all, you always want to be casting Holy Words on someone if they're below 60% health. You want to top them back up. And if you have full 2 stacks of Holy Words, you probably want to be casting it then too. Second is as an Oracle, you want to cast Prayer of Mending just basically on cooldown. So Prayer of Mending also applies Power Word Shield, and it's 25% more effective as an Oracle. So that's why it's above heal and flash heal on your cooldown list, and you can cast it basically on cooldown. Even if the group is at like 15% health, you still can cast it on cooldown. Third would be cast heal and flash heal on players below 70%, or you should be casting heal and flash heal to get your holy words back. And fourth is cast renew roughly on cooldown, or you can honestly not cast it that much, but you should occasionally be casting it to try to get your holy words sanctify it back a little bit sooner. Last, if you have no holy words, then you need to get one holy word back. So get your holy word off cooldown because you want to always have one in the chamber just in case someone tries to kill your friend. Also, make sure to take advantage of resonant words because that spell makes your next heal and flash heal do 40% more. So you want to try to, every time you cast a holy word, you want to cast either a heal or a flash heal in between. And if you've done all those 5 things, you have some holy words, prayer of mending's on cooldown, renews on cooldown, then chastise, holy fire, holy nova, smite. So one advanced thing for Oracle is uh, for your cooldown reduction, Oracle, you want to cast cooldown reduction and then you go Prayer of Mending 4 times, or a lot of times I just do 3 Prayer of Mendings, then I'll go and do a Holy Fire twice. Oh, I did 4. I already did 4, so yeah. So Archon is the same exact priority list, but there's one difference. You cast Prayer of Mending after you heal people to 70%. It's not a healing button, it's a healing in the future button. So you really still want to be casting it, but you don't want to be casting it when people are like about to die. It's not going to save their life. You want to be casting heal, flash heal, and holy words during that time. Then the same deal with renew. You want to cast it a little bit on cooldown, but don't worry too much about it, and it's really mostly there just to get your holy word sanctify back off cooldown. And then after that, get your holy words off cooldown. They're off cooldown. Your prayer mending's on cooldown. People are healthy. Go ahead and cast some holy fires and holy novas. Also, make sure to take advantage of resonant words because that spell makes your next heal and flash heal do 40% more. So you want to try to, every time you cast a holy word, you want to cast either a heal or a flash heal in between. Occasionally it's okay to double up on holy words, but in general you try to want to cast a heal or flash heal in between every single holy word cast. So utility spells, there's mind control, there's one mob in Cinderbrew Meadery, it's a bee that you can mind control to do some damage. Not really that important to talk about. There's a Chastise stun, so if you're in a group with 3 ranged players, then you want to use your Chastise stun to help kick things, because they will not be helping you. They are just ranged people, and ranged people are monkeys and they don't kick. The third is Symbol of Hope. It reduces your party's defensives by 30 seconds, and then you have 2 defensives, Fade, Desperate Prayer, and you should be casting those before the damage happens. And lastly would be Guardian Spirit. So mana management. So there are some rules for mana management that I try to follow. Number one is I try to cast Symbol of Hope first, and then Mana Potion. And I try to do those both relatively on cooldown. And I will use Symbol of Hope first because the way the ability works is it's based on your missing mana. So you regain 10% of your missing mana, so if you Mana Potion first and then Symbol of Hope, you're not going to regain as much mana. And the third rule is try not to cast Flash Heal at max Lightweaver stacks. So let's build up to 4 Lightweaver stacks. And right here, if I have a proc, but I would rather, you know, cast heal, get the proc off, cast heal, get the proc, and go from there. That proc is called Surge of Light, and it is right here on the ability. So you get a free flash heal occasionally when you cast your spells, and if you're an Archon, you get a free flash heal every time you cast your Halo. So you get like 4 free flash heals every time you cast Halo because it goes out and in, and every single time it pulses, you'll get a free flash heal. And last, if you're still running out of mana, then you should probably talent into Enlightenment. I really try my best not to because it's nice to have that little bit of extra healing when you cast heal or whichever talent you try to flex it into. So macros. So there's 2 macros that I put on this Word document that I shared in the description. One is my Prayer of Mending macro, and the other is my DPS macros. So the reasoning behind the macro is, let's say I'm targeting this guy and he's targeting the tank, and I don't want to constantly be mousing over the tank to give him Prayer of Mending. Well, if I just press number 3, it's going to do Prayer of Mending on the target's target, and that's really nice because it saves you some time and some effort. And the second is if, let's say I'm targeting a friendly player and I want to cast a Holy Fire. Well, it's not going to work because it's not going to target a friendly player. But if you have this macro, then it'll target the target's target, and so you won't. If you're a player who likes to target people and then just cast your spells with your buttons, then you can do that, and then you can still have for the same keybind your damage abilities and you don't have to worry so much. Next is Weakauras. I wrote all of my own Weakauras. If you're really interested in getting the Weakaura pack, I'll try to figure out how to get that going for everyone. But for right now, I just have the 2 main Weakauras that people ask for on my channel, and that would be the Prayer of Mending Weakaura and the Premonition Weakaura. So the Premonition Weakaura this is really nice because I have right now it shows I have the Overheal next, and then after that I have the single target heal. The single target shield. So I know right away that if I just go Guardian Spirit and then I cast my Premonition twice, I'm immediately going into overhealing with a shield and a Guardian Spirit, so I'm doing like near infinite healing. Can drop my Trinket. And that guy's getting infinitely healed. So that's why I like this Premonition Weakaura. And it also shows the cooldown of the next spell, which is the triple, and I have a big red square just to make sure I know that it's on cooldown, and I use the little white circle to know it's off cooldown. POP, I think that's kind of a hard key. So open with get my cooldown reduction, prayer mendings out. So almost every time I start a key, if it's like a big pull, like a bloodlust pull, what I do is I use my Oracle Overheal Piety first, and then I go and heal big. And if it's a really big pull, I would have used a Guardian Spirit, but I didn't panic and use it because I thought I might need it for the tank. and then the next Raging Tantrum happens, and it kind of glitches here, but I used Apotheosis during that glitch, and I used Apotheosis almost immediately after my Piety ran off. And so that's kind of how I handle almost every single dungeon at the very beginning, because you start with the cooldown reduction, so you want to get your dispel the next debuff is back. You start with the cooldown reduction, so you really want to get your prayer mendings all on the group. So you go into the first pack with a bunch of prayer mendings, and then you start with your piety. So this is another big overlap. It happens at about 30 seconds into the final boss, and you saw I gave the tank guardian spirit there. I could have given it to myself, but I, it wasn't that big of a healing thing. So I knew that I could just use piety as kind of a filler, and I'm trying to save my apotheosis for when we hit 50%. So that's kind of some of the rationale that I'm using in the middle of dungeons. So this is a clip in Priory of the Sacred Flame where it's the double paladin pull. So they're about to do their divine toll within 4 seconds of each other. So I used the shield of Premonition on the druid, and that absorbed a big chunk of the first thing. And if I hadn't used that, that druid is dead. So, I mean, I could have, if I was an Archon, done a Halo there, but I gave a cooldown. I used a Premonition cooldown, and it kind of covered that Paladin overlap. Because you just have to get everyone to 80% after the first hit, and then it'll drop it down to like 10%. And uh, this pack is notorious for being a very challenging pack in this. And my tank was so confident with me that, you know, he just pulled in even when we had other people going up. So I GS on the tank, and then I went into my premonition of overhealing as because I got scared, right? Um, and it seemed to work out pretty well. Because there's still a paladin in this pack, and that paladin, if he chunks someone and someone else gets injured too, then you could run into trouble. And we're pulling, yet again, we're going to have two paladins. So I probably need to use Apotheosis if I don't. There's really no reason I shouldn't be using it right now. So this is a clip where I was drinking mana, so I'm actually kind of late to the party. And I came up late, and this is the Warp Blood cast on the Blood Warper. So you see, I just used Premonition of Shielding on myself, and GS to the tank because I was scared, and uh, Warp Blood doesn't really do all that much damage, so if you have a shield on yourself, it keeps you at full health, and so all of your Premonition overhealing is going to be going on the group. And this is one of probably the most challenging mobs to heal in the game right now. So this is a clip of me as Archon with a meme build. You see I have the extra damage buff because I was trying Halo with the damage buff to see like if I could do more damage in like weekly keys and whatever. So this is pre 4-piece, so I probably wouldn't have lost this guy if I had 4-piece. Because right now I'm using Apotheosis in like 2 seconds. It's gonna happen. I should have used it sooner, and if I had used it sooner, even with my current gear, I shouldn't have lost this guy. So I use Apotheosis, and this mage used no defensive, so he died. Um, like with good players, as Archon, like you kind of have to rely a little bit on them to heal themselves, like use an alter time, use something, you know, but like this is kind of what pugging looks like, so you lose people and you just keep moving forward. This is a clip of the double spider tank pull. I'm actually in a really not ideal uh build. I'm actually in just a DPS build, but this is one of the hardest pulls in the game. It usually requires about 3 million HPS, and um what I did there is I used this is like an example of what a weekly key might look like, where I used divine words to have to buff my halo, and then I just went through and was trying to do as much damage as I could, like even on a big pull like this where you basically just have to heal. And between the Halo at the beginning and then after that, I added the Apotheosis.